Hi guys! I wanted to pop in really quick and let you know that this episode is going to be a solo episode. Unfortunately, Marina couldn't make it in tonight, so it is just me. So it's good news for people who love me and bad news for my haters because you get no breaks tonight. It is all me. First of all, I just want to also apologize because I sound a little crazy right now. I was just in Texas for a long time and it was 75 degrees and it was beautiful, and now I'm back in Chicago, which is a great city. We all love it, but it's like 20 degrees here. So unfortunately, my Texas blood just kind of, I don't even know, congealed or something, and so I sound like this. So we're going to persevere tonight, and hopefully my voice does not drive y'all super crazy, but if it does, I do apologize in advance and you are forewarned. Even though my voice does sound like this, I think this episode is something that you guys are really going to want to listen to. So I'm really hoping that you can make it through because I know that I'm so excited to talk to you guys about what is happening this week in Bright Lights Beyond world. So getting into tonight's episode, it is officially episode 4. And we have so many fun things to talk about tonight. So what we're going to be talking about is a couple different things, but basically the main topics tonight are going to be the connections that are made with near-death experiences and how we're all connected to each other, and then also the paranormal when it relates to near-death experiences. On top of those two crazy topics, we also have another interview of a near-death experiencer, I guess that's what we're going to call him, a near-death experiencer. I don't know. I'll come up with a better name later. So, since we have a ton of stuff to get to tonight, let's get right into it. So, if you've been watching our podcast for the last 3 episodes, you know that we've been asking you guys to do a lot of imagining. And tonight is no different. Tonight, I'm going to ask you to imagine something that's a little bit more morbid than we've been asking you guys to imagine in previous episodes. Imagine you're on a weekend with your partner and you guys are driving, and all of a sudden you get into this horrific crash, and all you can remember is the crash. You see the car, you see what's going to happen, and then nothing else. In the story I want to talk about right off the bat, this happened. Now, there was someone called Jennifer Diamond, and she actually had a near-death experience, and hers was one that was quite traumatic and horrific. So her and her boyfriend were on a Memorial Day weekend getaway in Florida, and they were on a drive, and all of a sudden, they could tell that they were about to get into an accident, and it happened. They got into a horrible car accident, and Jennifer says that the only thing she remembers is knowing she's about to be in an accident, and then she is transported to a bright light. So when Jennifer was transported to this bright light, she meets this God being, and that's what she describes it as. So like we were saying in previous episodes, it's really hard for them to try to put into words what they felt. It was like the whole, scenario of trying to describe something in 5 senses, but it was actually like you were experiencing it with 50. So she says that she's in this beautiful bright light, like this really brilliant bright light, and she meets this deity, which she can compare to God for us, but this being that is like a god. And so when she's in that light, she said that she was there for about 20 hours, and she said that the most important thing she learned when she was in that light is that we are all connected. And she's meaning connected not just in the way like we all know each other, or like my neighbor, like I've seen him driving, like we are all connected. Like the human race is connected. She says no matter what color, creed, what occupation you have, we are all connected. And that was something that was so strong for her, was the connection. So throughout this episode, I kind of want to look at what Jennifer was talking about in terms of the connection. So when Jennifer comes out of this trance that she was in, this near-death experience, this great beyond, she comes back in a hospital bed, and she is actually able to communicate with the nurses and know them by name. And the reason why she can do this is because when she was in the bright light, she was said to be given psychic abilities, that she could read people's minds. I know what you're thinking, literally what? So let's get back to the beginning. So they were in a horrific car accident and both of them were transported to the hospital. Unfortunately, Jennifer's boyfriend did not make it, but they were both in a coma for around 2 weeks. And while she was in this coma, she was able to communicate almost telepathically with the nurse and the doctor. She was actually able to recall conversations they had while she was in a coma and their name and personal information about them that she wouldn't have known otherwise. So when she wakes up, her experience is that not only did she have a near-death experience and she was changed by that, but she is now forever altered because she says that she became psychic. Now, she had a book that came out in 2015 called Waking Up Psychic, and it kind of depicts what happened before the accident, during the accident, like her near-death experience, and then her experiences after her near-death experience. And it's how she is grappling with her newfound psychic abilities and how it's going to help her and the people around her. Now, like I mentioned before, when she was in the great beyond, she did say that she saw like a faceless person who is this light that she, depicted as God to us, and that he taught her that we are all connected. So through her newfound psychic abilities, she's tried to really help people realize what they need to hear, and that's that we're all connected and that there is definitely life after death. Before looking at this story, I guess I just never thought of near-death experience as like a paranormal. I mean, yes, it's paranormal, I guess, but like paranormal anomalies happening after. But there is studies saying that people who have experienced near-death have heightened abilities in the paranormal and parapsychology realms. And so looking at a study that, our favorite guy, Bruce Grayson, Ian Stevenson, and Richard Cohen did, in looking at people who've experienced near death, they were able to link about a 38% increase in paranormal activity surrounding them. They said that people who've experienced near death have a 38% increase in clairvoyancy, telepathy, precognition, deja vu, dream awareness, guidance, healing abilities, and the sense of reincarnation. Now, not every person who experiences near death obviously has these, but in the study that they did find that these people who've experienced near death, they also experience a lot of paranormal phenomena. In looking at this, I thought, actually, this makes a lot of sense. It's almost like birds of a feather flock together. So when one paranormal aspect happens to you, it would make sense that more would happen because you're more open to those elements. And I found this very intriguing. I was with my dad this weekend and I was watching a show, The Unexplained with William Shatner. It's on Netflix and I suggest definitely watching it. And there's an episode called Life Beyond Death. This series came out in 2019 and it was just really good episode. And we watched it and I sat there and I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to do a podcast episode on the paranormal effects of people who've had near-death experiences, because I just had not even thought about that yet, but it makes so much sense. I'm wondering if a near-death experience is almost like a manifestation of the paranormal. In my opinion, they're definitely linked together. And so the manifestation of the paranormal could almost be what gifts you're given in the great beyond. Like I said, not everyone gets a gift, but these people who experience like healing and clairvoyancy and the sense of reincarnation from their near-death experience, it would make sense that they would have continued experiences in the paranormal realm. I just thought it was so cool to think about it like that, because I know that I personally hadn't thought of that prior to watching this episode. And then also I was like, wait a second, this actually makes so much sense. So another thing that came up in this Unexplained with William Shatner on Netflix, which, by the way, they're not a sponsor yet, but who knows, the night's still young. There was a lady, her name was Joyce Hawks, and she had a near-death experience back in the 60s, and she was vacuuming in her room, and all of a sudden she just like passed out and hit her head like on the fireplace, and she was like out. And she said that when she came to, she was like in a different realm. She was like, everything was beautiful and it was all bright and white and light, like we've heard 1,000 times. But when she came back, she had this sense of healing. And she was a lab technician. Like, she literally was a lab tech girly. She was a scientist. And when she came back, she ended up quitting her job at the lab and decided to help people just pro bono in the basement of her home. She would look at them, and sometimes that she would get this like psychic ability to like see where their ailments were, which I thought was just so cool because hers manifested in healing. Her near death experience not only was a near death experience, but then transcended the great beyond that she saw to helping people. And that kind of plays into the narrative that we were talking about even in the first two episodes about how these people's lives just simply change and they want to help people, and now we're all connected. So, on this thread of near death experiences and paranormal finding each other, and then the connections that we all have to the world, and just like the not even just our worldly being, but like the world in the sense of like just realms and whatever else, I wanted to mention a story that I got a first hand account of. His name is Santiago Facundo, and I went to college with him in Austin, Texas. And after watching a couple of our episodes, he also reached out to me like my friend did with her dad. And what was so fascinating about Santiago's story is that this was not the first near-death experience he'd had. So back in 2019, he had this horrific motorcycle crash, and he actually had an OBE, which is an out-of-body experience. He saw himself, he saw a tunneling light, it was all dark, and then he saw himself above himself. And I will let him tell you that right now because the way that he story tells is just amazing. So listen to Santiago in his own words about his accident in 2019.
Hi, I'm Santiago Facundo, and I've experienced some near-death experiences. So it was 2019, August, hot summer. I just finished my internship at the Paramount, and we were doing outreach at elementary schools. So around 4 p.m., I drive a motorcycle. And so I'm on my way home from my internship. I got to fill up gas, and I kind of became a statistic. You know how they say, like, the worst accidents happen within a mile of your home? Well, I was super close to my home getting gas, didn't have my helmet on my motorcycle. And as I was crossing a green light, someone yielding on the other side was making a U-turn, and they didn't see me. So I got T-boned on my left side by a car and hit me dead on. I flung off my motorcycle, luckily onto the sidewalk. And I immediately like put my arms above my head to soften the blow. And so I hit the ground. I'm still able to like gain my consciousness. And I check my body a little bit, and I look over, and my left leg where I got hit is completely mangled. Just like how your foot makes an L shape, it became like a reversed L shape, and the little L foot was just like crooked. So I got a very quick peek, and it was really gnarly, a lot of blood, a little gore, but I quickly looked away, and I kind of defaulted into like deep breathing. I was taking major focus into these deep breaths, as slow as I could, trying to stay calm. And as this was happening, my vision was tunneling, and the darkness was just like coming around my vision, kind of like an aperture closing. When I came to after losing consciousness, it kind of felt like you've been there the whole time and you just like woke up. And so what I woke up to was like a out of body above my body, seeing myself like on the ground, and I could see people coming to me. And I actually got hit on 38th Street, right outside of a hospital. And so there's a bunch of hospital offices for different clinics and stuff outside of the hospital. And very immediately, nurses, like two nurses came out and a doctor, and I can hear them, but I was like not there. And they immediately like looked at my legs, started someone brought me oxygen. Man, it felt like a good minute, like a good strong moment of silence minute. But then like as the breaths started coming back, I kind of like zoomed back into my body, and it felt like the same thing, like I had been conscious in my body the whole time. It's kind of like you see your eagle eye vision at the same time, but then you're also on the ground, like a weird picture in picture. But the feeling of being back in my body was just like cold, just a deep coldness. Oh, And it was so shocking. Like, I didn't feel that when I was outside of my body. So when I got hit, I definitely knew I was in an accident. I definitely saw the car coming. I got hit. And right as I got hit, I was still able to like put my hands up. Uh, but it was like once I hit the ground, it was like a moment of just like darkness, you know. But then just like a breath, you know, brings me back. And in that like dark moment, I didn't feel like any odd disconnect. I remember losing uh my hearing as like the tunneling, kind of like when you put like noise canceling headphones on, just like a whoosh. And then the what I could hear when I was out of my body definitely sounded muffled from what I can remember. It was very cinematic. It was like a just like a pan. It was super seamless. Like I didn't feel it felt like falling into a dream. That's really what it felt like, falling into a dream. It was so seamless, it was so quick. It felt like I had been there already, you know, just moments before my consciousness linked up.
So, after Santiago had this horrific accident, he spent a month in the hospital recuperating. He had to walk with a cane. He kind of had to learn to walk again and to kind of figure out where he was going to go from here. And he explains how that month stay kind of shaped him into the way that he is now and the perspective he gained.
As a result of the accident, like I was bedridden for a month and it took months to rehab back to walking. And in that struggle, those really yeah, it can be really tough and definitely molds a person. And I can say like hardened my edge a little bit. In hindsight, like after the accident, knowing that I'm alive again, it definitely opened up my eyes and made me appreciate life a little more. Second, not second guessing, but like having more thought about myself, my relationship with people. What are the important things to hold on to in this life? Because at the end of the day, you can't take anything with you. You know, you can't take the Nintendo, you can't take the car, you can't take the house, you know. So really my whole life was put into perspective. What I would like to share with people to know is that it's so complex. Life or death situations that uh surprise you. They're very complex, but of the three big ones I've been through, they all warrant introspective after. And it just really can't be helped. But the accident itself and those incidents are very complex and they have shifted my life in positive ways and negative ways, uh, in different aspects.
But as I mentioned before, Santiago had had two near death experiences prior to that. In listening to Santiago's story, it's kind of hard not to see the psychic connection there. He's had multiple near death experiences, and each one has shaped him and changed the way that he views the world. And so I think it's no surprise that things like psychic connections or paranormal activities continue to happen to people who experience near death. I think that they're a certain special type of person because I think that these one-off paranormal phenomena do not just happen. I think there is more to their near-death experience and what they're supposed to do after it happens. I understand that this episode is a little bit harder to, I guess, wrap your head around if you're on the more skeptical side. Now, I do not judge anybody. I literally love everybody who's a fan or a listener, and if you're a skeptic, that's great. I think that the world goes round with people like you. But just like in one of my favorite shows, The X-Files, their slogan is, I want to believe. So, in the realm of wanting to believe, I just want you to kind of think about that for a second. These paranormal or these psychological connections made really are kind of strange, you know, in terms of who has them and what's happened to them previously. I think our life is totally made up of our experiences and how we share our stories. And I just think that this is just a really cool facet of near death experiences. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And the overall sentiment that I want to end with is that like Jennifer Diamond said, we are all connected, and not just in the way that we might think in terms of, oh, I dated him and now he's my sister's brother's best friend or something like that. Wait, your sister's brother would be your brother, I think. Anyway, okay, bad analogy, but you get what I'm saying. We're not just connected in the way that we are physically, like we are all connected spiritually. And so in looking at these different cases, I think that we can kind of see that. So I want to do a special thanks to you guys for listening, a special thanks to Santiago for definitely giving me this interview and being so kind and gracious with his story. I also want to hopefully share with you our sponsor in the next couple of weeks. We're just waiting to get some stuff down, but we've officially found somebody. And I also want to tell you that we love when you guys reach out to us, and we would love to talk about a topic that you guys want to hear. You know what I want to hear, but you guys are our listeners. So please engage with us. Please like and follow. And I know that I'm cringe on Instagram. I know that. But if you could please engage, I don't know. I will give you a big kiss. Anyway, thank you guys so much, and live life beyond.